All right, welcome everybody. This is the first one-on-one that the BSU podcast is doing, and we brought back Seren Sensei. Welcome.
Woo! What's up?
Everything's great. And we brought you back because specifically you and I had a conversation about a club on campus brought up the fact that they felt like the event was hate speech. Their concern was they brought to ASI, and ASI is the Associate Student Inc. They pretty much do things for students on campus. They wear a lot of different hats on campus. But the concern was brought up by a club that attended the event, and they felt as though it was hate speech and that it targeted a certain group of people. So
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about what real hate speech is, what
Okay.
constitutes real hate speech. And I know that we talked very briefly about it, some of your opinions about what real hate speech is. And I don't know if you wanted to go first.
You can go first because
Okay.
I want to hear like what is the situation exactly? Is that just like all it is? Was like
That's all it was. All it
Okay.
was is that they brought up the concerns with the event that we had with you when you came to campus.
right,
And they felt
which can be watched in full.
yes, it can be watched in full. So if anybody wants to watch that, please watch it on this channel. And there's also timestamps for every single thing we talked about.
Mhm.
And every chapter that we spoke about is also in those timestamps. So again, I thought it was a very interesting perspective to have on the event where that was clearly not about hate speech.
Okay.
So one of the things that was suggested from me, and I spoke to a couple of professors about this, was this book that I actually bought for the Black Student Union. Okay, it's called Hate. It's fairly new. I actually asked the library to add this to their repertoire because they do not have it at the library. It's called Hate. We should resist it with free speech, not censorship.
Mhm.
And actually, one of the professors that goes here is Dr. Elizabeth Jackson, is actually noted in the book, and she was the lady who is, what did she say? She's friends with, or the
the godmother of Issa Rae.
Yes, the godmother of Issa Rae, and
Right.
she also thought that there was no hate speech involved. And
Oh, so
she
you
told-
asked her?
No. I did not ask her.
Oh, okay.
It was getting around, and
Oh, okay.
so as I was talking to several different individuals, she brought this book to my attention, and I had a chance to read it, and I thought this was great material for what we're talking about. And again, if anybody wants to read this book, the library will now have it at the physical library, and we have a copy of this also. And I also have a copy in my office if anybody wants to read it.
Mhm.
So, and I actually should send you this book.
Yeah.
I think you would like this. I'll send this to you, and
Totally.
let me know what you think.
Okay.
Another thing is we recently went to see Dr. Cherry. She was here Friday, and she had this wonderful book that I read, and I love her books. And I have books to give away to students too. This is also in the library. It's called Unmuted: Conversations on Prejudice, Oppression, and Social Justice. They talk about having, very active conversations about these particular subjects and the proper way to have communication. And also, if you have not listened to her podcast, check it out. It's also by the same name, Unmuted. So I thought these two books were really great because these are things that we're kind of talking about anyway, and things that we constantly are promoting in the Black Student Union here about understanding and read. That's the library right there. Just some of the books that we have. But I wanted to just kind of showcase that we are serious about, having this conversation about what hate speech is, and that we are not just speaking out of nowhere.
Right. So I also have a definition of hate speech that I'm going to read. So I generally don't like dictionary definitions because they tend to be behind, but I'm going to read like some general loose definitions here for hate speech, which is abusive or threatening speech or writing against a particular group especially on the basis of race, religion, or sexual orientation. So just going off that one, I find it very interesting for people to claim that they felt hate speech occurred because I'm pretty sure that there was no abusive or threatening speech that was made, which is why I like went out of my way to be like the whole entire conversation, panel, or lecture can be watched in full. It can be rewatched in full. It was between four Black women that, you know, we basically participated in a panel conversation. It was like actually very respectful. There was no yelling. There was no cursing each other out, even though I say all the time that like people should be allowed to express themselves. So even if somebody had like wanted to yell or curse themselves out, I feel like that would have been totally fine. And even when people sort of stood up to give their, ask their questions and sort of give their 2 cents, I feel like at no point was there any abusive or threatening speech or writing against a particular group, especially on the basis of race, religion, or sexual orientation. There was another definition that I have here is hate speech is a statement intended to demean or brutalize another. I don't believe there was anything demeaning or brutalizing that happened. For the most part, a lot of the general definitions that you see around hate speech, again, involve demeaning language, brutalizing people, abusing them, threatening them, demeaning them. And none of those things happened. So when you asked me to speak about it, it was funny because my first thought, I don't know who's seen this, but my first thought was The Office. It's going to sound like random.
No, please.
There's like a little scene. I didn't even like The Office, but like I've seen this sort of floating around and it seems appropriate, where they're doing like racial like sensitivity training, and the white male boss is like, he gets told that like the office is like racially insensitive or whatever, and he says like, that's hate speech, right? Like that's hate speech against me as like a white male. And then somebody else is like, that's not hate speech. That's not what hate speech is. And then he's like, well, I hated it. I feel like that's I feel like that's something that happens a lot, that people get, I hated it, confused with hate speech. Just because you personally hated it, just because you didn't like it, like that doesn't necessarily make it hate speech. I hate a lot of things. That doesn't necessarily mean that like all of those things are in fact hateful. It's possible for me to not just like them. And I think it's totally cool for people. I think dissent is great. I think it's awesome. I think it's totally cool to be questioned. I think it's totally cool for people to like, even like come to events and like not like what we're gonna say, and to like stand up and to ask questions and to push back, but to then say, oh, well, I believe that this was hate speech. I think that, number one, I don't think that that's something that should just be tossed around lightly just because you didn't like something. And I also feel like everything that was said by me, anyway, I can't speak for anybody else, but everything that was said by me during that panel was a fact. I don't know if I can like show paper.
Yes, please.
Okay, because remember I told you I was like, I'm gonna have like some stuff, for example.
Do you want to share your screen if you have it?
Well, I have like actual like physical copies.
Okay.
So yeah, I just have like some actual physical copies of some things that I want to show, because pretty much like you said, ASI, I believe, is it ASI?
ASI is the Associate Student Inc. And it was in their minutes because they have meetings. Okay.
Right. Okay.
And it was brought up to the ASI president from a particular club. I am not going to put them on blast.
Okay.
But a particular club that was at the event, and they claimed there was hate speech and that it targeted a certain group of people.
Okay. So
they felt it was inappropriate, and I have to say, this is a college campus.
Right.
I think that's really something people need to understand. This is not a place that is just to coddle 1 or 2 or 3 ideas or beliefs.
Right. Yeah. So like, for example, something that was discussed at length was sort of differences within the Black diaspora and differences amongst sort of different ethnicities of Black people, be it Black Americans, descendants of American chattel slavery, be it Black Brits, be it Caribbeans or West Indians, be it continental Africans. There was some discussion about people being different. And I've noticed, for example, that a lot of people seem to find that offensive when you make the statement of like that Black people in the diaspora are different, that we're not all the same. So something that I had printed out that I wanted to show you, there's some stuff at the top, but let me fold it. So the first thing I wanted to show was this article. So this article is from NPR. I can send you some of these links. It says 2020 census, if you can see that. It says 2020 census will ask Black people about their exact origins, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is, if you can see that. And so this is actually an article that it goes in depth about how, especially since we have a presidential election coming up in 2020, reparations are becoming a very hot topic. Reparations for American chattel slavery, for Black Americans, for descendants of American chattel slavery here in the United States. So it's becoming a really hot topic. And so as we discuss reparations, Cory Booker, who's running for president, he actually just made a statement, I think like today or yesterday, saying that like, oh, he's considering introducing some legislature for reparations. And so as we head into like a 2020 presidential election, for example, where reparations are like turning out to be a pretty hot topic, you have to get into the conversation of, okay, well, we're talking about reparations for American chattel slavery. So obviously the next question after that is going to be, well, who's considered a Black American? Well, who's considered a quote unquote descendant of American chattel slavery, especially now when you have, again, really high numbers of continental Africans that are moving here, of West Indian and Caribbean immigrants that live here, of Black Brits that live here. So if we're talking about reparations, I'm just using this for an example, how do we decide who's going to get reparations? So now there's conversations about, oh, on the 2020 census, they're going to ask Black people about their exact origins, because right now on the census, it says Black or African American, which is this really loose umbrella term. So now they're saying, oh, well, we're going to start asking people, are they from Africa specifically? Are they continental Africans? Are they West Indians, Caribbeans? Are they, Black Brits, Europeans? Are they the children of immigrants? Because it's something that's going to matter. For someone to come on a college campus and say that is not an attack on any of those ethnic groups, right? Oh, you have that there, you got it, yeah. For someone to say that is not an attack on any of those groups, okay? It's a discussion. Like you said, that's a college campus. We're having a discussion. We're having an academic discussion. We're having a spirited discussion. We're having a debate. We're talking about the issues. We're talking about things that are relevant. And as sort of as a faculty advisor for the Black Student Union, and the fact that we're talking about things that are relevant to Black people and throughout the Black diaspora, there's going to be things that we have to talk about. That's going to be hard. That's going to be difficult conversations. I talk a lot, and I spoke in the panel as well, about how for a really long time we've embraced this idea of this kind of like stilted or stunted idea of Pan-Africanism, which sort of says like, well, we're just all the same and it doesn't matter. And then when you start talking about, well, maybe we're different, maybe we're different in this way, and maybe we're different in that way, it makes people uncomfortable. But again, a point of being on a college campus is to get educated and to make yourself uncomfortable. And just because you're uncomfortable, just because you hate it, doesn't mean it is hate speech. If it's not abusive towards you, if it's not demeaning towards you, if it's not inciting violence towards you, none of which occurred in the panel, unless I just had a psychotic break from reality and I'm like not remembering certain things that were said.
I will
none
say
of that
this.
occurred.
I will say this. I think that the discomfort or comes from mainly the part of the book where you talk about we're not questioning your Blackness, which again, if you go to the video, all the stuff, it has timestamps and specific chapters.
Right.
And I think that was one of the main issues, was that, this particular group was saying that, now are you questioning Even though, again, in the book, in the chapter, it says, we are not questioning your Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
In that particular chapter, when you're talking, you're breaking down that idea. Do you think, I mean, you wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are your true thoughts. Do you think that illustrating it in the way that you did makes people feel just generally uncomfortable?
Yes, I think the way that I talk in general makes people feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Something that Bell Hooks said that I really try to keep in mind is that, well, I'm going to paraphrase, not the exact words, but it's that basically any radical theory, any sociopolitical theory that can't be used and understood by the masses is useless, right? So like I can sit on your panel, or I can write a book and I can like talk in, you know, in exceptional academic jargon. I can use the Queen's English. I can throw around all types of big words and concepts and ideas and theories. I consciously make the choice to speak in a certain type of way, to write in a certain type of way, which is why my book is even called Contemporary
Yes.
Essays on Race and Pop Culture, because I make the conscious choice to express myself plainly. This is what I think. You don't have to like it. It's great that you don't like it. It's fantastic that you don't like it. Go out and think about what I said. Mull it over. Come to your own conclusions about it. Maybe look some things up and read about it. Decide. You can decide for yourself if you want to agree, if you want to disagree. That's a really deliberate, conscious choice that I'm making. And I do also recognize that the fact that I'm maybe not using a lot of, again, academic jargon that people are used to, or just speaking in a certain type of way.
I think either way.
I don't coddle people. And I feel like I don't coddle people and it makes them uncomfortable. It's not like, well, okay, I'm going to hold your hand. And this is anybody. This is like other Black people, white people, like non-Black persons of color, like whatever you want. It's like, I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm not going to talk to you quietly. I'm not going to talk to you softly. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not here to make you comfortable with these ideas. I'm here to express these ideas. I was there at California State University, Bakersfield, to express those ideas and to participate in a panel conversation, which was a success. Anything outside of that, why were you there? And why are you there at school? Are you there just to reinforce what you already think and what you already believe and the ways that you've already thought your whole life? Is that why you're there? Because if it is, you're paying a whole lot of money to continue thinking the way that you've always thought. You might as well just go back home.
I agree. And I wanted to say, so again, in this book, which I suggest everybody should read, I'm going to send one to you, Seren.
Yes, send it to me.
So on page 60, the chapter, it says true threats. And the Supreme Court gives an example of what true threats of like hate speech really is. And I'll read it briefly. True threats are limited to statements through which the speaker means to communicate a serious expression of an intent to commit an act of unlawful violence to a particular individual or group of individuals.
Right.
So there was no intentional, there was no intent to intentionally cause some sort of violence to one person or an individual group of people. And obviously it goes into more detail in this, but I prefer people to go out and read this. But why do you feel people felt like your intention was to come in with quote unquote hate speech?
I think that I really genuinely think that it's because, well, number one, I really do feel like sort of post Donald Trump, we're living in the alt facts era. We're living in the era of just like alternative facts and just sort of saying whatever you want. And I also feel like a lot of, I'm gonna like loosely use the term left, even though like I don't really consider myself a leftist, but colleges generally consider themselves to be like left or, you know, liberal spaces, liberal institutions. I also feel like you have a lot of liberal spaces, liberal institutions, and leftist spaces and institutions that maybe not even on a conscious level, but after seeing the way that Donald Trump and conservatives and the right sort of like manipulate facts and the fabric of time and space, and how that worked for them, right? Like that got Donald Trump into the White House, and that got them all this power in the government, in the House and in the Senate. I feel like a lot of people have been sort of adopting those methodologies for themselves of, well, I can call it hate speech because if I call it hate speech, if I use those particular words, buzzwords, trigger words, it's going to elicit a response. And that's like the method of trolls, internet trolls, trolling. That's methodology of Donald Trump. He says just really inflammatory things to just like get people up in arms. Doesn't matter if it's true or false. Doesn't matter if any of it actually happened. And I feel like there's a lot of that goes on nowadays, and that happens. Again, it's, well, I hated it, so I'm going to call it hate speech. It doesn't matter if it actually was or wasn't. Like, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And I know that if I use those words in particular, especially let's say if I go to official administration and I use this type of very, very seriously charged language, I'm going to get a response. Yes. And I'm most likely going to get the response that I want out of this situation. It doesn't matter if I'm actually right or if any of that stuff actually occurred.
Do you believe that was the intent of those people? Like I said, I viewed it more as an ignorant statement. Like, you did not understand.
Yeah.
You didn't fully understand what that meant, what those particular words.
Or the seriousness, the gravity of that type of accusation. That's what I mean when I say, I don't know if it's something that's done deliberately, even if it's like something that's done on an unconscious level. But I do think that that type of methodology is something that people have internalized and that people have now weaponized and used against each other. Not in the sense of like they're evil villains sitting at home, you know, like rubbing their fingers together, like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. Right. But I do definitely think that it is something that happens. And I do also think, again, that people have sort of conflated the idea of like, well, it made me feel this way, so I'm gonna just go with my feelings on how I think it made me feel. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to think through it. I'm not going to react with any logic. I'm just going to like go with emotion. And again, I definitely feel like it's that there's a message that has been sent for the past few years of just like emotion and like louder and like bigger and all that is better. And so I think that's what a lot of people are definitely running with and going with. And I think when people feel uncomfortable, nobody likes feeling uncomfortable, but you really do have to be made to feel uncomfortable in a lot of opportunities in order to grow. But nobody really likes to be made to feel uncomfortable. It's very easy to just like sort of retreat back into the space of like, no, that's wrong. I didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable. I'm just gonna like totally pull back and withdraw. And I might even like take it steps further into like actively making it into something that attacked me just because it made me feel uncomfortable. And again, this is a tactic that we see like all the time with white people. Like if you tell a white person that they have privilege, they lose their minds. They get so defensive, they get so upset, they react as if you attacked them. You didn't attack them. You didn't attack them by telling them that they have privilege. You didn't attack them by telling them something like, well, racism is real, but they will respond that way because they were made uncomfortable by something that you said, and they don't want to confront the reality of what you said, so they become defensive, and they make it about what you said, and they make it about you attacking them. And that in turn allows it to be, now they're defensive and they can make it into something you said that was offensive, even if you didn't actually say anything that was offensive.
Right. And I find it interesting. People don't even understand like the true like concept to consider, like the full context of the situation. Like, we are on a college campus. It's not like we went to wherever you live and started saying whatever we wanted to say, even if we gave, evidence to support whatever we were thinking or whatever you thought the person we brought here was thinking. We are here on the college campus. We're in a room, we're in a space that is for free speech. And again, to say that, there's a wonderful case inside this book. They talk about even if the Ku Klux Klan went and burnt a cross, you know, that itself does not garner enough to say that this is hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
But if they took that same burning cross and put it on the lawn of an African American family or a Black family, yeah, that's pretty much like the content there that means that you are trying to cause harm to those people, you know. And I thought that reasoning was very interesting. And then they even used certain examples on the college campus, like if somebody put a noose, that's a direct, like that's very direct, especially if you're putting in the area, there was a lot of students around, you're trying to cause direct harm and violence, you know, because there's no proper context for this being here.
Right.
You know? And so I thought with that example, I thought that was very interesting, because what was put here for you to feel like you were being attacked or there was hate speech? Well, where was the precedence here? Even so much so, if people actually have an opportunity to watch through some of our earlier podcasts, some members from this group actually were part of a discussion that we were going to have further about what the differences are between Black Americans and foreign Blacks or Blacks that come from other places that migrate to the United States or that come over here. And we actually had a short discussion about that. We never had a chance to have a part two to that discussion, but it is something that we did talk about. And at that point, it was not hate speech, but now it's hate speech. I think that's very interesting. So it kind of reminds me what we talked about on the panel about, well, what narrative are you choosing now? Is the narrative now that that we're trying to cause hate speech, or are we just trying to have dynamic conversations?
Right. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, the fact that there were 4 of us participating in the panel. None of us all had
there was 6 of us, I think, right? Can I count?
I'm sorry.
I think it was like 6 of us.
Was it 6 of us? Oh, you know what? You're absolutely right. Sorry. There were 6 of us. Yes, there were. Sorry.
Okay.
I can't count. There were 6 of us. Even better. There were 6 of us on the panel. None of us were the same. None of us were the same person. Obviously, none of us had the same ideas. None of us had the same opinions. You had Glitter and Goon, who spoke about having a Trinidadian parent. You had Dr. Jackson, who talked about her relationship to Issa Rae. Like, you had myself, you had yourself. You know, we were all kind of coming from different perspectives, different ethnic perspectives, different academic backgrounds, different social backgrounds, different professional backgrounds. So, and we all had different opinions. And again, it was sort of a panel style conversation. And then people that watched were also able to stand up and ask questions and give their thoughts as well. So, I mean, it's interesting because I actually feel like it was very much a safe space, a welcoming space for everyone to come and make themselves known. I mean, like I said, anyone can feel attacked at any time. Like, you can feel attacked anytime you walk outside your front door. You can walk attacked, you can feel attacked. You can feel attacked just being at school because you're not at home. You're not with your family or with your parents, with your childhood friends. You're not in your comfort zone. You are in a new place with new people experiencing new things and new ideas. That doesn't mean that you have to feel attacked by those ideas.
Right.
And I also feel like, again, it's totally cool for people to not like what other people say. I feel like too, if you don't like what somebody says, find them wrong. Like, again, like, look it up, read about it, do research about it. It's all for something that's not like, again, sort of immediately dangerous. It's almost lazy. It's like,
It is a lazy argument.
Yes, it's like almost a lazy argument. Like I would respect the argument a little bit more if the argument was straight up, I didn't like it. I thought it was inaccurate. I thought it was incorrect. I'm gonna make it like my mission in life to like prove that this shit was wrong, right? Like that to me is like what being in college is about too. Cause like when I was in college, I had some teachers say some stuff to me that I was just like, bullshit. Like I don't agree. I don't believe you, especially as a black, you know, a black face in a collegiate setting, which already comes with like a whole host of microaggressions and things of that nature. And it's just like, I don't fuck with what you said. So I'm going to like make it my mission to like completely dismantle everything you just said. It's a lazy argument.
It is. And we even gave people time to come up and ask questions, you know, and I thought that, you know, at any point you could have, you know, voiced your concerns. I mean, this is why we're here.
Yeah. I would have loved if someone said to me in person, in my face, in real time, I found that to be hateful, so that I could have said, why? And then they could have expressed, this is what I found to be hateful. And then I could have expressed, well, this is how I feel. That's how a dialogue works. That's the point of a dialogue. And again, that's supposed to be the point of being on a college campus or in any institution of higher education, which doesn't even have to be like college, is to foster a dialogue. And again, that was the whole point of like why I was there in person. People can talk to me in person in real time and we can have a conversation. And that just reinforces like the laziness of the argument even more. Like,
yeah,
because you had the opportunity to say something, but didn't, right?
Yes, and even if you were, for example, when we first were doing introductions, and we were talking about like language with like cursing, even that is protected speech.
Yeah,
it really depends on how you're getting with it, like how it depends on the context of it depends on where you're doing it, you know. So again, you're really like,
I looked that up as well, and it is true that like even hate speech is like not disallowed. Like,
no,
you have all types of things that people could consider hateful on college campuses.
Yes.
All types of things that like Black people have to deal with every single day that are considered hateful, that are still allowed on a college campus because it is considered to be a discourse and an exchange of ideas. And so I do think it's an interesting question. And I've actually been reading a lot about this within the last year, because it's sort of been a growing conversation of what is allowed and like what is not allowed on college campuses in terms of things that directly make people uncomfortable. You know, if you have a professor that teaches an African American studies class that spends, you know, a whole entire semester on slavery, and you have white students that are used to only spending a week on slavery, and then they come to college as freshmen and they say, I don't like this. I feel attacked as a white person. I want this African American studies professor to lose their job because to me, this is hate speech because I hated it. Is that fine? You know, it's like, it's sort of like a slippery
slope. But again, this has to do with what we talked about, respectability politics. If this is coming out of professor's mouth, it's really hard. It's really hard to throw that narrative around unless you don't like them.
Right.
It's really hard to throw that narrative around because they can throw, you know, articles at you. They can throw publications at you. You know, there's a lot of different things they can throw your way. But if you think that you can say, well, this person's not credible, because there's not this check off here, check off here, check off here. And I don't think you can defend yourself, right? Thus, I can throw around, as you said, these lazy arguments, these lazy defenses for why you personally felt whatever way you felt. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. The Black Student Union has always been political. We've always fought for the rights of people, specifically Black people. It's the Black Student Union. And when we went down this venture of getting a library for the Black Student Union, it's because we are trying to educate people, and specifically things that have to do with our culture,
Mhm.
So when we talk about these things like hate speech, as a matter of fact, I have to say, I think that this is a great learning moment. It's a great learning tool.
I agree. Oh no, I was just saying I agree. That's it. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Even, and again, this, I think you're really going to love this. They also talk about, you know, with fighting words, they call it fighting words.
Mhm.
And you'd have to like intentionally incite violence. You know, I would love to use an example like Trump. When Trump, there was, I believe there was a man in the crowd or was a woman in the crowd. And he was telling them, yeah, get those MFs out of here. And yeah, do whatever you got to do. I'll pay your bill. Yeah, get them out here. And that incited them to put their hands on those people,
Mhm.
right? Push and shove. And those people got sued.
Mhm.
Because, and I think they won. I'm pretty certain they did. But I'm just saying that that would be a very definite like example of inciting people
Violence.
to do something violent or aggressive to somebody, not
Mhm.
just yelling at them violently, but putting their hands on them. So again, I think it's interesting. There's different levels to what hate speech is and what is actually punishable,
Mhm.
opposed to something just being, again, you said, your feelings.
Mhm. I think people, getting back to feelings, I feel
Mhm.
like I think people feel like their feelings are extremely absolute. Um, Dr. Joy DeGrasse talks about this a lot too in terms of cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
People feel their feelings really strongly, and
Mhm.
your feelings can feel in the moment like they're absolutely like real. And that's not to say that like feelings are not real, because like feelings are totally real and everyone is entitled to their feelings. But there is a saying, and like there's people say this a lot, like in therapy as well, like you need to learn the difference between what you feel and what's real, right? So
Mhm.
you're absolutely entitled to feel your feelings. You're absolutely entitled to be upset, to be angry, to feel, you're even entitled to feel attacked. However, you cognitively have the power to also take a step back and think through your feelings. You don't have to act on your feelings. You can say, I feel really upset about what is being said right now. I feel personally attacked. Am I being personally attacked?
Mhm.
Am I being, is, something actually hateful being said towards me, or do I just not like it? And that's the hard part. And I mean, and it's like in college, it's just like everyone in college is extremely young, and like people are just like not 100% in control of their feelings and their emotions and their thoughts. Everyone is still learning. So this is
Right.
like no fault on like anybody. But it's just like having the cognitive awareness. That's like self-awareness, to be like, this really upset me. It made me so angry. It made me so furious. I felt so aggressively attacked. But you know what? I'm gonna take a deep breath. I'm gonna like count to 10, and I'm gonna like really work through how this made me feel and why it made me feel that way. And I also feel like that why is also a really important aspect of it that people miss, because also 9 times out of 10, when something like really immediately makes you really angry or makes you feel really defensive, there's something like underneath that. So like getting to the core and the crux of the issue before just reacting and responding off of emotions is a really important thing that I think also gets missed a lot when we're having these type of conversations. Because when you're sitting somewhere watching a talk for 3 hours, your emotions are probably just building and building and building and building and building through that time. Maybe you really did genuinely feel attacked,
Mhm.
but then maybe you also have the power to go home and think about what was said, and again, maybe look some stuff up and read through some stuff and Google some stuff and come to terms with your thoughts and your feelings. And now maybe you really do still feel fucking pissed and attacked and this and that, and then maybe you don't. And I think that that's something that's just not talked about enough either, especially, again, I feel like I'm going to continue saying this as well, the fact that we're in the alternative fact era. It's like, no, I can just my emotions can just like totally govern whatever I want to say, and I can just say whatever I want, and I can just like, there's a lot of like knee-jerk reacting. There's a lot of like outrage.
The emotional maturity is not at a level to handle conversations like this without, I mean, I understand, like you were saying, and I agree with you, that there's going to be things that make you uncomfortable. And you might have to step back and really think about it, but step back and think about it
is emotional maturity. And critical thoughts. A lot of like this is why I also said I feel like it's not necessarily something that people are like consciously doing, but I do think that it is something that happens because critical thought is also just like out the window right now.
Right.
Especially we have like a 24-hour news cycle, and we're kind of like constantly bombarded with things. A lot of times things what they call like the outrage machine and stuff like that. We're just constantly bombarded with stuff like all the time, 24/7, 24/7, 24/7, that a lot of the time we don't even have the time to step back and critically think about things and process it. And I think that also contributes to a lot of these knee-jerk reactions around things that make us feel uncomfortable. I was also reading this wonderful article, which I absolutely agree with, on long reads, that it was about this concept called flooding, which is the concept of, it's sort of like echo chambers, sort of like next level of echo chambers, which is where we read the same stuff all the time, stuff that we like. We watch the same stuff all the time that we like. We're getting our our thought leaders and our writers and our the people that are telling the stories and creating the narratives and reporting on the news and giving us things to read and think about. A lot of the times what's happening now is there's a flooding of all the same types of ideas, all the same types of concepts, until you get this like really strong mainstream narrative. And then when you have voices that are opposite those narratives or are radical to those narratives, it can be a shock. It can feel like an attack, like what the fuck? Because it's just not, we've been flooded, we've been bombarded with like.
Now you're introduced to a different idea.
And it's scary.
Right.
It's scary.
So, and I think that this, again, you brought up the emotional maturity. This is another reason why I brought this book up. Okay, Unmuted, where they're taking the time. Now, this was written by a philosophy instructor, professor, and they're talking about how to have great communication with people. Okay. And one of the things she talks about in the book is that, again, sometimes great communication requires some kind of dysfunction. It does require some of this uneasiness that you feel. I think one of the other things that made people uneasy was the first introduction, which is why I said, let's go ahead and just jump into it, because I'm more about let's get into it and let's kind of dig through.
Let's just go for it.
Yeah. Was the all white people are racist.
Right.
And I know that there were some people in the crowd who were like, oh my goodness, they're really, I'm very uncomfortable with this. Even though you broke it down, I think, in a very nice way.
Yeah, that's normally how it goes.
I think you broke it down in a very nice way. But I think that concept just goes over people's heads because, again, as you said, there are people here just living, not saying here specifically, but people just walking amongst us who just do not believe that concept. It's a hard concept to swallow. And you can feel attacked when someone says, all white people are this, this, and this.
Right.
And regardless of how much you broke it down, right? Unless you say, it's almost like Black Lives Matter, saying Black Lives Matter, and then somebody coming back and saying, well, all lives matter.
All lives matter, yeah.
Yeah. And so what would you say to that idea of saying that little blurb of all white people are racist? And when it has to do with hate speech?
And well, here in the United States, and I've talked about this extensively, I think in the book as well as I know I've done videos on it as well. Here in the United States, we've made race and racism a taboo subject to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of after Trayvon Martin, which was in 2012, and then the murder of Mike Brown, which was 2014. So that's only within the last 5 to 7 years, more like 5, has it become acceptable in the mainstream to talk about race, really. And even that, like that first year, like after Mike Brown got killed, there was a lot of back and forth, like, no, racism isn't real, isn't real, isn't real. And then people started like very slowly coming around to like, okay, racism is still real. But it's sort of like, even what we're taught in school is very like slavery. It's like Revolutionary War, slavery, Civil War, a little bit of Jim Crow. Okay, MLK, Rosa Parks, we're free. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. Like butterflies and rainbows. I have a dream. Colorblind, especially now post-Obama, colorblind society. Race doesn't matter. Racism is not real. It's not a thing. And again, to the point of where it became like a taboo thing to even talk about. And then we also made it so that racism basically got attributed with being like Voldemort or being like the boogeyman. Like it got put to this,
I love the Harry Potter reference. That's
seriously, no, but seriously though, it's like if you call somebody racist, like 9 times out of 10, they'll be more offended that you called them racist than like actually addressing what was actually said or done. They'd be like, you just called me a nigger, that's racist. They'd be like, oh my God, how dare you, how dare you call me racist? It's because you called me a nigger, like let's get back to that. But it's because we've made it so taboo that people feel like, oh, you're saying I'm racist, so like you're saying I'm a bad person. Again, like you're saying I'm Voldemort, like you're saying I'm Hitler, like you're saying I suck as a person. Oh, you're calling my grandma racist, but my grandmother's nice. She's the nicest person I'll ever meet. She's the sweetest person ever. It's like your grandma can be a nice, sweet person and still be a racist. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Because just like I said in the panel, and like I've said in the book, and like I've continued to say, we live in a racist society that socializes all white people to be racist and to have racist beliefs. It's everywhere. It's inescapable. And people have to wake up and learn that they were socialized in that way and then unlearn it. That doesn't mean they're not nice people. That doesn't mean they're not good people. That doesn't mean they haven't worked hard. That doesn't mean they wouldn't give the shirt off their back, to a homeless person. That doesn't mean, it doesn't mean any of those things. What it means is you clutch your purse when a Black person walks by, or you lock your car doors, or, things of that nature that's like ingrained within us. And so I think that we do that with a lot of things. We associate a lot of things, and especially social concepts like racism, with like negative traits or like positive traits, because it's also like, somebody can totally not be a racist and they can still be a shitty fucking person. Just like you have people that could be super nice and they can still be racist. And so, but again, that gets back to like critical thinking and being able to think about things in different types of ways. And we suffer from a lot of binary thinking. It's either this or that. I said all white people are racist, so I'm saying all white people are Voldemort murderers that would kill a Black person. That's not what I'm saying, And so I feel like
and you broke that down. You explained that you're benefiting from a system that has and also
it's brainwashed you.
Right, and you're like, you are born with these concepts because it's been put on you.
Yeah.
You were born.
If it wasn't your parents, it was your aunt and your uncle or your grandma or your friends or your teachers or the movies or the books you read or the music you listened to. It's literally everywhere. It's like, and what I was gonna say when you were like talking about how in the book they say that like a little bit of dysfunction is necessary. It's sort of like that joke about you ask a fish what is water, and you ask a fish like how is it to breathe water, and they say like what's water, because they're surrounded by water. They swim in water. They live in it constantly. They don't even have a concept of what water is. And I feel like I see that a lot when we start having these conversations. It's like, you don't know until you know. you don't know that you're a fish swimming in water until somebody's like, hey, you're in water. Like, you're not aware as a baby. You have no awareness that you're breathing air. You're just doing it instinctively. You don't know until you're made aware. You don't know until you know about a lot of things. And knowing, in the sense of, if you don't know till you know, knowing can be really fucking uncomfortable. And a lot of people have knee-jerk reactions to certain things that are said, such as, yes, all white people are racist, because it directly forces them to confront things that they never thought about, that they didn't know, or that they've already internalized in a certain type of way, usually negative, that it's almost like they need a brain reboot. Like I say all the time, people need to be like unplugged from the matrix, because that's really what I feel like it's like. And that's hard. That's hard work. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for Black people. It's hard for white people. It's hard work for everyone. It's uncomfortable work for everyone. It's long. It takes a long time. It's difficult. You're going to be made uncomfortable. You're going to get pissed off and angry. All these things are going to happen. And I also just think that a lot of people are just like, I don't want to deal with that shit. Retreat. I can't. It's just easier in a lot of ways to like live in a state of denial and just be like, no, that's not what's going on. You guys are bugging out, or you're crazy, or whatever. And I think that happens a lot as well. It's a clusterfuck.
It is. And I thought it was also interesting, the type of language that was used to, prior to the event that we had with you. There's a lot of that like language that's being pushed that I thought was very interesting, because I remember we had a conversation during the podcast. I don't remember which portion it was, but we talked about how people will perpetuate, from other cultures, will perpetuate these prejudice ideas and these narratives. And I thought that it was very interesting that you brought it up, because no less than you saying that, like, no sooner did you say that these things were happening. And we, and me, because I'm the advisor, trying to understand, okay, now we bring dynamic speakers here. We bring speakers of your age group to have these conversations. I spent time reading and watching your videos and figuring out where your narrative was coming from, and thinking it was a valid, interesting perspective to bring onto a college campus, especially a college campus that does not have a lot of Black people. Okay. And being able to see yourself in someone who's coming to this campus, who has their degree, possibly working towards your next one, working on another book, which, by the way, I need like a heads up so I will. So I can first a whole bunch of books before anybody else does. You worked on your own book, and I think it's wonderful. And actually, Dr. Elizabeth Jackson, I gave her a whole bunch of books to give out to students that she believes is worthy having your work. And we have a couple copies too here for students as well. But it's not like we were picking you out of a hat when this was presented to me. I think it was interesting that the language, again, that was being used prior to being notified about this quote unquote hate speech concern was very much that of what you talked about, that you're going to perpetuate ideas about Black people because you are being, you don't want to be associated with those Black people. You want to be aligned with this narrative of, if I do this, if I act this way, if I speak in this fashion, then I'm the good one. I'm not like you. And I will use whatever narrative I need to use to push the separatist idea. And I thought that was very, very strange. It's odd. As I talked to other professors about this concern with the hate speech, I thought, well, none of them are thinking this. All of them thought, well, we thought it was very interesting. We liked it. And also, I want to tell you, I wanted to send you a picture, but I'll just tell you since I have you here. They actually have your book in the library now.
Oh, yay. Thank
Yes, they
you.
have your
That's
book in the
amazing.
library now. Yeah.
Still send me the picture.
I will send you the picture, I promise. But they told me that they went and purchased the book. They thought it was very interesting. And it is now in the library. I just have to go there and take a picture of it. But
Awesome. Okay.
yes. So we don't just have it, they have it too. I think
Cool.
that's fantastic. Even the librarians loved it.
I love librarians.
Yes, yes.
I think
Shout out
that's
to
just
Sandra.
narratives.
Sandra.
I think that's just narratives. It's funny because people say to me all the time, like, oh my gosh, you always like say like that this is what people are gonna say. And then they say it. How do you know? And I'll just be like, it's like a narrative. Like there's a narrative, there's a dominant narrative, like, and there are narratives that get perpetuated.
But you were right. And that's
All the
exactly what
time.
happened. And it's unfortunate. I really laughed at it when I first saw it, because I was like, oh wow, she called it. She called it before she called it before it happened. And I was so eager to get you back and have a conversation with you about it. But we'll be working together on other ideas and other talks and other club room conversations. But I definitely wanted to do it one-on-one with you, because I thought, wow, this is a really interesting idea.
Exactly what I said was going to happen. It's just there's narratives, and people are like so tapped into narratives. And it sounds mean to say like, and people don't listen. People don't know how to listen. But I definitely think there's a lot of like, people say things and it goes like, not even just myself, but all types of people. I've seen this, and it will just go in one ear and out the other, especially if it goes against the popular narrative that people already believe, which is a confirmation bias. It's a term, which is confirmation bias. Like human beings, the majority of human beings like suffer from a confirmation bias, which is that we sort of take what works for us and we leave the rest. And to not do that, and to actually, again, think critically, and to actually listen to the things that people are saying and ingest it and think about it, it takes work. It's something you sort of have to actively do, because in your sort of default state, when you're not actively trying to do it, you're most likely relying on your confirmation bias, which is, oh, well, and this is also used as an example, again, when talking about like white people and racism, because it's like, if you already believe that all Black people are thieves, when you read the paper and you see an article that says like a Black person is a thief, you're going to be like, see, all Black people are thieves. It doesn't matter if you skimmed over 5 articles before that talking about something that a white person stole from another white person. You're going to stop at the one with the Black person and be like, see, that confirms what I thought. All Black people are thieves. That is a confirmation bias. And so I think most people, they're tapped into whatever narrative they want to believe, or whatever's the popular narrative, whatever's the majority narrative. And then they just sort of latch onto what already confirms that, and they sort of run with that. And that's why, to me, I feel like a lot of people's behavior is like really predictable, because it's like, I already know what narrative you're tapped into. So I already know what you're going to say and do. You're not going to surprise me. And they normally don't.
Yeah. And again, I think sometimes people also view people through a specific lens, because it's not like people didn't know who you were.
Right.
Okay. And whatever narrative they had about you, and I'm just exactly what you just stated, whatever narrative they had about you prior to you coming, they already came within the idea that I'm not going to like anything you have to say, because I already have seen some of your, past speeches or videos. So I'm going to go into this having already a bias or having a negative view with you. And if I hear anything, even though I know I'm going to hear something that you said before, I'm going to take that, I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to throw hate speech.
Right. But let me also say that I have also seen the reverse happen, which is always nice. This happens on YouTube a lot, because a lot of snippets, because I do long form content, I do like video essays. So I might do a video that's 45 minutes long. You can't upload a 45-minute video to like Twitter, even though people have like the attention span of like a bug on there. But so like 20 seconds of a 45-minute video might get like chopped and screwed and uploaded on Twitter, right? And that will like get around, or get, you know, a minute will get put on Instagram or something, and that will get around. But then I'll get a lot of people that will be like, you know, I saw this snippet on Twitter and I came and looked for it because I felt like I just had to get some context for what you're saying. And now, having watched your whole 45-minute video, I see why you said all white people are racist. I totally agree with you. So that's like always cool too, to witness. But those people were already...
that rare? Is that more rare? You know, I feel like it could be.
It's a little more rare. It's a little more rare, but it does happen. It happens enough. And but those are people that have to already be in the mindset of like being open-minded, right? Like they're not in the confirmation bias. They're not in the mindset of I'm gonna go watch to find something to hate and pick apart, which I find hate watching to be weird. Totally different thing. They're already in the mindset of like,
wait. I want you to expand upon that.
Hate watching?
Hate watching, yes.
Yes.
I would argue that is what happened. What happened? Yes.
Hate watching is when people already know they're not gonna like something and they specifically go watch it to hate it.
Yes.
And to complain
That's
about
also
it.
not hate speech.
No. Again, just because you hated it doesn't mean that it was actually hate speech.
Right.
It's not how those words work. Yeah, and people do that type of thing all the time, which I mean, and even people do it like without meaning to, like unintentionally. Like people will send me things and be like, "Ooh, this made me so mad that I just had to share it with you." And I'll be like, why did you have to share something with me that made you upset? Are you trying to make me upset?
They want to let you know, listen, I'm bothered.
Right. And then they'll be like, well, no, I'm not, you know, trying to make you upset, but I just like, I was so angry and I just like had to share it. You know, like they say, misery loves company. And then I'll say, okay, a lot of the times I like talk people through this type of thing. I'll be like, okay, well, did you already know before you clicked on it, opened it, read it, whatever, that it was most likely going to be something that would make you mad? A lot of the times, 9 times out of 10, people say yes. They'd be like, yeah, like Kylie Jenner, right? Forbes called her like self-made billionaire or something like that. So it's like right there in the title, right? And then people would be like, yeah, I hate the Kardashians. I especially hate Kylie Jenner, and I hate reading anything about her. And this just made me so mad that I sent it to everyone that I knew and I spread it around even more. And it's just like, but you already knew it was going to be something that you didn't want, something that was going to make you upset, something that was going to make you angry. It wasn't going to be anything like particularly enlightening, you know, for you, or you weren't even already in the mindset. Even if you wanted to, like, I'm sure there's people that wanted to change their minds about Kylie, sticking with that example. And so they like read that Forbes article and maybe they walked away with like, wow, I think it's like really cool and amazing that she was able to parlay her social media followers into a business. Wow, this Forbes article changed my mind. You know, that's mindset. That's the mindset that you have to already have before you enter into any given situation, be it you open something up and read it, watch it, attend a panel for it, listen to it. That's on you. And again, where you are in terms of your mindset and your critical thinking capacity, even if it's something that you do still hate at the end of it, being like, well, I still didn't like it, so it's not for me. That's cool too. That's fine also. There's tons of shit that I see every day that I'd be like, nah, this ain't for me, X. Move on about my day.
Move on about your day.
Move on about my day.
So what would you like to say to people about that were at the event that did not express themselves? Because we can always have you back.
I would love to come back.
Yeah, we would love to have you back.
Dialogue is going to make you uncomfortable, especially again in a learning institution, be it a college campus or anywhere else. I feel like real dialogue, actual dialogue is going to make people uncomfortable. Even if it doesn't make you uncomfortable, it might make the person that's sitting next to you uncomfortable, and you never know. You might 100% agree with what's being said, and the person next to you might hate it. a dialogue is maybe you guys talking about it and coming to terms with your respective feelings about it. Critical thinking, having the ability to step back and think about what you were just told, process it, work through it, not necessarily 100% relying on your feelings about it, how it made you feel. This could be good, bad, positive, or negative, because people also do the reverse of, you know, something makes them feel good, and then, you know, they feel so great, and then later on they'd be like, oh, hold on, that person didn't really even say anything, you know, they were just cresting off their emotions. So developing the critical thinking and the ability to just really think through things and process them and get to the bottom of them, and even the things that you don't like, being able to dissect it, being able to get to the core of what you don't like about it, being able to come to terms with, is it, again, something emotional or is it something logical? Because like nothing I said at the panel was inaccurate. Everything that I said in the panel could be backed up with like 100% like facts, like studies.
Right.
Like I said, I have like all types of, like the census thing that I brought up, that's going to be an issue. So talking about differences within the Black diaspora, for an example, is not picking on anybody. That's going to be an issue. Maybe you don't feel like it's an issue for you right now in 2019, but next year when this presidential election comes and this census comes and they're putting where are you from on the census, it's going to be something you're going to have to think about, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Yes.
So like think through the things that make you uncomfortable.
Yes, and again, and I'll share my screen with you so you can see the article that Seren is speaking of. This one right here, you can see that. Okay, please check that out. That is on NPR.
NPR.
Okay, please check that out.
And think for yourselves too. That's like the amazing thing too about being in college and being in these types of spaces. Like you can think for yourself. You don't have to be plugged into any one narrative or any one.
Let's expand upon that.
Yeah, what any one person says.
Well, I mean, if you think about, you know, what was happening with Trump and how people were just following him and everything that he was saying, you know, what do you say to those people who are the people in the crowd that are listening and then applying those thoughts and those actions to their lives?
Think for yourselves, which people tend to think.
How can they? How can you get people to start thinking for themselves?
Thinking for themselves. That's critical thought. That's critical thought. Not just, I like what this person said and made me feel good. Because like I said, Trump said a lot of things that made people feel good. He said things like, I'm going to bring back all these old coal mining towns again.
So it helps them feel better about what was actually being
happening to them, right? Because like coal mining towns really did like shut down, right? But Trump can't bring those back. Like we're never going to go back to burning coal energy, right? Like that's just not something that's ever going to happen. So he can say something that's making you feel good as much as he wants. Are you going to just go with that emotion of him making you feel good, which does feel good, right?
Well,
or are you going to like?
I think this is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened with the hate speech claim. Yeah. That someone, whether it was all of you who came up with this idea or one person came up with the idea and said, you know, it sounds like, you know, hate speech to me, and kind of ran with the idea instead of having a critical thought about what is it that we're actually claiming, because it's a serious claim to make. Yeah.
And also asking yourself what made you uncomfortable.
And what made you feel comfortable, and why does saying that thing is hate speech make you feel comfortable?
Make you feel better.
Make you feel better about what was being said. Why does to say that it was hate speech make you feel comfortable, opposed to you feeling uncomfortable about what was said?
That's thinking for yourself, asking yourself the hard questions. And that's why I said it's really hard, because you have to ask yourself a lot of questions about what are you thinking and feeling, and why are you thinking and feeling those things? And again, the difference between what you feel and what's real, and all that stuff's difficult. But I really do think that that's what thinking for yourself boils down to, being able to ask yourself the hard questions about how you're thinking and feeling. And if you need to, again, get some research on it, get some more information, maybe, because again, that's why I said, like, I really don't think there was any like evil intent. like you were saying, maybe there's somebody that really genuinely didn't know what hate speech was.
Right.
So they said it instead of saying like, well, let me look it up. Let me think about it. Let me read some more stuff. Let me talk with some other people. Again, that's asking yourself questions about how you think and feel and working your way through it instead of just running with the narrative. But running with the narrative is easy. It's really, really easy. And also humans have mob mentality where if enough people people work themselves up and work each other up, right?
Right.
And then it takes off.
Do you also think because at that moment when you feel good, that's the end of a conversation? The moment that you feel good, that you now you're satisfied with, okay, I don't feel horrible about it anymore. That's when okay, I'm done with the whole talking about, I'm done with the research, I'm done with kind of expanding upon what was being said. Do you think that comfort or satisfaction feeling that was gotten because of saying, oh, this is hate speech, do you think that that comfort feeling is the thing that makes people say, I'm not going to research.
Yes.
I'm not going
yes.
to.
It made them feel good. People like things that make them feel good. That's like how people become drug addicts, right?
Mm-hmm. But I wonder, just because something makes you feel good, why wouldn't you say, well, why does this make me feel good? Why am I comfortable with that language?
Because I think a lot of people, that's again, critical thinking and thinking for yourself and asking yourself hard questions and being self-aware and having introspection. And that's difficult. And a lot of people don't want to do it because self-awareness and introspection doesn't make you feel good a lot of the times. It makes you feel like crap, or it makes you sad, or it makes you angry, it makes you upset. It's much easier to sort of like go with the tide of a good feeling, especially again, when you have other people around you that are also tapped into that narrative as well. And you're all sort of just like, yeah. What are you getting out of introspection that makes you feel bad, except like being a better person in the long run? That's not really giving you anything immediate. You're getting instant gratification from feeling good right now. I mean, and there's all type of science behind that, like endorphins, and that's how like social media gets you like hooked on like seeing hearts and stuff like that, because you're getting that instant gratification. You don't always necessarily get instant gratification from something that's going to take a lot longer and be more difficult, like self-awareness and introspection and critical thinking. So I definitely think that good feeling, and then being in a group with other people to share that feeling with you and hype you up, it is like its own kind of drug. And I do think a lot of conversations stop there because of that. And I also think that you have people, again, humans are social creatures, we're animals. You also have people that they don't want to stand out from the group. They don't want to be the one to say, even if there was somebody that was like, I don't really think that this is what you guys are saying that it is. Nobody wants to be the odd man out of the group. Nobody wants to run the risk of getting kicked out of a group themselves, or being ostracized, or having to deal with, difficult, painful situations or implications. So a lot of people go along with that as well. I'm not that person.
Well, and also, like you said, we're dealing with young minds.
Yeah. And, young people want to fit in. So, I mean, humans want to fit in, but like young people especially, they want to fit in.
Yeah, and there's also different layers on college campuses. With people that come here, some people come here because, their parents say you have to be here. Some people come here because they're really just interested in learning. Other people are trying different experiences. So even the people that are involved with this particular club, I think that could be the situation. There's so many different personalities. There's so many different perspectives. Even here, even in the BSU, in all clubs, I'm certain, we're all different types of people. We have commonality, which is why we're with these particular clubs, or common interest. And I think this is why I didn't want to have a conversation that was going to lead to more divisiveness. I wanted to have a deeper conversation about why you feel this way, and kind of dig into that and really make you self-assess. I'm always interested in digging into the root of why we're responding this way, why we're acting this way.
Yeah. It's like an abscess, right? If you have like an abscess,
Yes.
you have to like get all the nasty stuff out before it can heal. You can't
Yes.
just like put a Band-Aid on top of it and be like, it's fine. Because then like your arm falls off.
Exactly. Or it just gets infected again.
Yeah.
It just never heals properly, you know, and it causes more complications than it should.
But getting back to difficult feelings and sticking with that example of an abscess, digging in an abscess hurts, right?
Yes.
Like digging in an abscess to get all the gunk out is really painful. It's going to be better for you in the long run. Like, how many people do you know that have avoided like going to the dentist to get like a tooth, you know, pulled or something like that, even though they know they have a cavity that's rotting and getting worse and worse, but they're trying to like avoid that, what they feel will be worse pain. So they just like, nope, I'm not going. I don't want. I feel like we do that with a lot of things, physically, emotionally, intellectually. It's like, I just don't want to deal with it. So I'm just going to like ignore it, pretend it's not there. But over time, it's festering and getting worse and worse. So it can either be addressed or it's going to like kill us, I guess, you know?
I agree. Well, I want to say thank you. I'm so glad you stuck with me for over an hour.
Yeah, it was a great combo. I'm glad we were able to talk.
Yes, and I would love to have more conversations with you with not just being a one-on-one. This is just another part of the podcast, like one-on-one segments that I'll do with people from time to time. But actually having the BSU have a bigger conversation with you whenever you can.
Absolutely.
We can talk about it more in detail whenever you can. I know you're a busy lady. I know you're like running around all over the place.
Yes.
If none of you have seen Seren's videos, you are missing out. If you have not read her book, you're missing out. Let me grab the book real quick.
Cool beans.
I gotta show your work. Again, if you have not gotten this book, the BSU has several copies that we are giving away to students to read. So about that, a year of contemporary essays on race and pop culture. Again, we have quite a few of these books left here. We have books. This book is actually in the library now.
Awesome. I love that.
And I'll take a picture for you, I promise.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. And if you haven't checked out her YouTube channel, please check out her YouTube channel. I'll put the information in the description box to check out her content. She has some really great videos, car videos. I think there was one you said something about bees bait.
Oh yeah, that's the live stream.
Okay, the live stream that you do, and how often do you do that?
It's normally on Sundays.
Okay, normally on Sundays. Also, you do the Black Americans, where you travel around the country and you talk to. I think is it just all over the country, or is it specific areas of the country?
No, it's all over. It's all over. Yeah, we're prepping for season 2 right now.
Okay, so season 2 is coming out.
Yeah.
So check it out, and you also do videos on.
I do hidden figures.
Hidden figures. You do hidden figures.
Which women in history.
Yes, and I've actually seen a couple of those. I'm just like, wow, she's great.
Done over 100 hidden figures.
That's over awesome. 100. Yes, so check that out. That's great history there. So if you're writing papers or anything like that, check those videos out, and then go to the information that she provides, because she gives great details with that. And you also do. I don't want to forget. I just forgot what it was. You do other videos. Black-owned businesses.
Yes, that's the last Friday of every month.
Last Friday of every month. She also does Black-owned businesses. Some really great stuff in there.
I do a lot of content. I don't know how that happened.
A lot of content. So if you want to get to know this young lady more, please go to her YouTube channel. Like I said, she has a book. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. Yep. And thank you so much. We will be doing more videos with you.
For sure. And more like events and panels and everything. Awesome.
Yes, you'll be back here on campus. We promise.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you, Seren.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.